It just didn't keep going. Okay, that's fine too. One moment. Whilst I, whilst, while I prep this for the end of the stream, which I know is not the end of the stream, but you know, okay. Are we good? Ooh. Okay. What was I doing? What was I doing? I gotta do this. Okay. Okay. Is that everything? I don't know. I would say unprepared today, but that's also just not true. You know why? Because right here in my hands is 9 and a bit pages of notes. It's 5 sheets of paper, but pages, you know? Because pages is like the, yeah. So, today is the start of a new series that I'm very excited about that I will not be doing regularly. Just putting that out there. Why does this look? I will not be doing this regularly. Just putting this out there. I don't have time to do this regularly. But I'm calling it I'm Going on a Tangent, as you can tell from the stream title. And basically, all I'm going to do is pick a topic and talk about it for like an hour or two. And today's topic, because, you know, and today's topic is going to be, well, okay, because most of the time when I do this, it's probably gonna be stuff I'm hyperfixated on or like really interested in. So today's topic is ADHD because I just thought that would be a very good place to start. So we're gonna start by, I'm gonna talk about like what is ADHD and like the science and symptoms and all that blah blah stuff. And then I'm gonna talk about getting my diagnosis and my experience with ADHD. That's what I wrote. So, yes, it's going to be like a lecture. I was gonna like make slides and stuff with like pictures, but I couldn't be bothered. So, maybe in the future. I don't know. But yeah. Ooh. Accidentally made my mic peak a bit a few times. My bad. Oh well. Okay, so yes, obligatory disclaimer. This stream is just me info dumping about ADHD and my experience with it. It is not meant to be used as a diagnosis, although self-diagnosis is super valid. I am not a professional. I have taken one psychology class, and it was an intro to psychology class. So I'm not qualified to be well, okay, I was about to say I'm not qualified to be talking about this. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be talking about it, but yeah, whatever. Whatever. Okay, anyway. If you suspect you may have ADHD, please do your own research and talk to a healthcare provider if possible. Second disclaimer, because I wrote down two. While some sources I used are trustworthy, not everything I say may be completely accurate. This stream is meant to be an overview of ADHD, so there are topics I will only briefly mention or that I chose not to discuss for the sake of time and my sanity, because I spent like 4 hours straight yesterday doing research for this. So I had to cut some stuff out. I had some other stuff I was going to talk about, but I had to cut it out. Also, you probably shouldn't trust everything random people on. Did I hear something? No, we're good. I'm hearing things. Anyway, also, you probably shouldn't trust everything random people on the internet say. Again, do your own research. Okay. Here are my sources. I don't know. It's paper, so you can't even do anything. Here, you can click on the links. No, I'm kidding. Okay, that's so dumb. That's a really dumb joke. I've got, just as proof that these are trustworthy sources, I've got six. I've got 6.govs, clevelandclinic.org, okay, I don't know if you would call this CHAD or CHADD.org, but that is a website recommended by the CDC. I got some I got some of my information from Wikipedia, which I personally think Wikipedia is fine for a source. like they're like really strict on like monitoring that and stuff. So I personally think that's fine, but whatever. Um, and then getinflow.io. Okay, that one's not like as I don't know if that one's a it doesn't sound like a trustworthy source, but like when I read it, I related to it, so that's what makes it trustworthy. Um, healthline.com. That one's a little iffy, I'll be honest. That one's a little iffy. Um, and then one Reddit post. Um, yeah, so those are my sources. I'll put the links to the sources in the description of the VOD on my YouTube VODs channel. So if you go to the About section of my Twitch. Oh, hello. You saying Miss Isabel makes me think you were one of my kids from work, which, if that's the case, I don't know how you found me. But if you aren't, that's a really weird thing to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, my kids at work call me Mrs. Bell. Anyway, and then, um, where was I? Oh yeah, so they'll be on. You're not okay. Sorry, that's kind of weird. I'm doing good. How are you? Pretty good. Thank you for asking. Of course. Okay. Anyways, yes, the sources will be in the description of the VOD on my VODs channel on YouTube. So if you want to find them after the stream, it'll be there. My VODs channel is linked in my About section, so you can go look there. And then what else? Um, Feel free to ask questions if you have any while we're doing this. I'll try to answer them. And if I can't, I will probably stop what I'm doing and Google it because that's something I do a lot on stream. And then also, if I don't think anyone's here right now, but yeah, I'll skip this one. Okay, so let's start with the lecture because this feels like a lecture. I really wish I made slides because like it's so boring. I also briefly considered putting like one of those like Subway Surfers things right here, but then I didn't because I'm lazy. So, yeah. Hang on. Let me make sure this is how I want to do this. Okay. Yes. Ew. Okay, sorry. I thought I saw a booger or something. Anyways, okay, so what is ADHD? So, obviously, ADHD, well, maybe not so obviously, but ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. I thought it was hyperactive. Apparently, it's hyperactivity. I guess that makes a difference. I don't know. But attention deficit is like lack of attention, and then hyperactive is extremely active. It is what it sounds like, you know. And then disorder is just anything that disrupts a person's physical and or mental functioning. And it usually they'll consider it a disorder if it's like impacting your daily life in a negative way. If it's positive, then it wouldn't be a disorder. I don't know what would positively impact your life like that, but I don't know. But in short, as I wrote, ADHD is a mental disorder that causes people to have the attention span of a frozen chicken nugget and the energy levels of a golden retriever puppy that just discovered its tail. Obviously, it varies between person and person, but I think that's a pretty good description, personally. Yeah, so now we get into the more sciencey stuff because I kind of think that stuff is cool, personally. If you don't, you can, I was going to say skip through this, but I guess if you're watching it live, you can't really. You could go find something else to do while I talk about this. So the causes of ADHD are still being researched, but there is a very, 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 very high chance, like, I think it's like basically proven, that genetics most likely play a role because ADHD tends to run in families. Personally, my dad has ADHD. He's never got diagnosed. I'm the only one who's gotten diagnosed, but he very obviously has it. He's checking off all the boxes. So, you know, I agree with the whole genetics thing. And then they're also currently studying environmental effects, so stuff like premature birth, brain injuries, prenatal substance exposure, stuff like that, to see if that also affects it. Which, I won't be surprised if it does, because the brain is a funky little thing. Funky little dude. Oh my gosh. I kind of said something like that. Okay, anyway. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition, which basically means that your brain's a silly little dude that didn't grow like it's supposed to. That's what I wrote. I don't remember writing like half of this. And then I said it isn't wired like a typical brain, because that's also true. So everyone's brain has this thing in it called, not a thing, it's multiple of these. They have these things, there are these things in your brain called neurotransmitters, which are basically just brain chemicals that help you do stuff. And they like go through your brain and they make you do things. And for people with ADHD, there are two types of neurotransmitters you're missing: dopamine and I can never pronounce this. Norepinephrine. Yes. Dopamine is like, a lot of people think dopamine's like what makes you happy. I think that's serotonin. Maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But dopamine's your reward system, so I can kind of see why people are like, oh, thank you for the follow. So I could see why people are like, oh no, like dopamine's what makes you happy. No, it's your reward system. There's a difference, okay? Anyway, so dopamine is your reward system and attention regulation. And norepinephrine is like your fight and flight. It also helps with attention, enhances memory making and keeping, and that is all I wrote. I feel like they do more than that, but I don't know. So basically you can see lacking in both of these things leads to ADHD when you look at the symptoms of ADHD. Yeah, so basically if you have ADHD, you have a not very good reward system and, well, bad attention, but we already have established that. Oh, this is the fun one. This is the fun part. ADHD brains are smaller than neurotypical brains. It says in volume, but like, well, so I guess like in size it's the same, but like volume wise it's smaller. So, you know, that's fun, being told your brain is smaller than normal. I don't mind personally, but you know, to each their own or whatever. So your prefrontal cortex is the most affected. So that's the bit right here. It's like on top of whatever. It's there. It's there, okay? So your prefrontal cortex is the most affected. And obviously, this is the part of the brain. You have ADHD? Let's go. Same. In case you couldn't tell, that's why I'm talking about this. But your prefrontal cortex obviously plays a huge role in regulating attention, behavior, emotions, and decision making. And because people with ADHD's prefrontal cortex are smaller than normal people, than neurotypical, not normal, neurotypical. Normal's such a weird word. Anyway, the neurotypical people, it makes sense, you know? It really does make sense. Like, when I was researching this stuff, I was like, dang. ADHD is not a mental illness, a learning disability, or autism, because apparently people have thought that ADHD is a form of autism. It's not. They are two separate things. More on that later. Mental illness is... Okay, mental illness is more something you develop and not something you're, like, born with. Like, there is, like, a genetic component to it, but it's kind of... It's a very vague umbrella term, I guess. And it's not a learning disability. It can impair learning, and it's common for people to have both ADHD and a learning disability, but it's not, like, specifically a learning disability. So, yeah. I almost choked. Okay. So there are 3 types of ADHD. Apparently, they are actually thinking there's a 4th, but the researchers don't really know what it is. I've never heard of it until I was researching this, so we're going to pretend like there isn't. But maybe you have the 4th secret kind, and I don't know. But there is hyperactive, which is the one that everyone thinks of when you hear like, oh, this person has ADHD. They just automatically assume it's hyperactive. So this is like the moving around a lot, the fidgeting, random bursts of energy, being really talkative and impulsive. You know, what you normally think of when you hear ADHD. You're like, oh yes, that child that's running through the supermarket screaming. Actually, that's like any child. That's not really an ADHD thing. That's just a child thing. But so I guess the grown man running through the supermarket. No, okay. Um, and then the second type is inattentive type, which is like zoning out a lot. So, like, as my psychologist puts it, going off in la la land. So, difficulty staying on task, staying focused and organized, that kind of stuff. And then there's combined, which is what it sounds like. It's both together, because that's what the word combined means. I personally have predominantly inattentive, which means that I have combined type, which it basically just means I'm mostly inattentive, but I'm also kind of hyperactive, which is true because I talk a lot. Um, so common symptoms, these are like the symptoms that, like, when you look at the DSM-5 criteria, these are like the ones they'll list. And then when you also look up like ADHD symptoms, every single website on Google like lists these same symptoms, and it's kind of boring, honestly. Like, switch it up a bit. Anyway, so there's overlooking detail, difficulty sustaining attention, not seeming to listen when directly spoken to, difficulty following through on tasks, difficulty organizing and sequentially completing tasks in a timely manner. That's such a fun word. Avoiding tasks that take sustained mental effort. I do that. Losing things, easily distracted, very forgetful, fidgety, restless, move around at inappropriate times. I don't think I did that one as much. That's not true. One time when I was younger, my parents were at the movie theater and they brought me, and then they were like, oh my god, whose child is running through the aisles screaming? It was me. So, I think that's a pretty inappropriate time to move around. Constantly on the go, cannot engage in activities quietly, talks excessively and interrupts without realizing, and difficulty waiting their turn. So the top half was more like inattentive, and then the bottom half was more hyperactive. But, you know, I think that's pretty obvious. You put two and two together and whatever. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to make sure I'm not going too fast, because on one hand, I don't want to get too distracted, and on the other hand, I don't want this stream to be like 20 seconds. Oh, it's already been 20 minutes, so I guess that's not a concern, but, you know. Also, here's Frog. Okay. Sorry, he was looking at me. Here are some other ADHD things. These are the ones that are not as much talked about, in my opinion, when you look up ADHD. So first up, we have understimulation and overstimulation. So for understimulation, ADHD brains, we just get bored like really, really easy. Like really easy, like really, really easy. Like, honestly, if you have ADHD and you're watching this, I would be surprised if you're bored. You know what I mean? I'm not bored because I'm info dumping and I like info dumping, but I won't be surprised if whoever's listening is bored. Frog Marley. But, you know, just like, that's why I like the whole thing where it's like they put the Subway Surfers and then the Reddit voiceover, whatever. Anyway, that doesn't have to do with ADHD. That's just, okay. Yes, I know what you mean. Great. See? Yeah, but yeah, ADHD brains get bored way easier than your typical brains. Because it, you know, when that happens, there isn't enough sensory input in our surroundings. Personally, it happens to me a lot when I'm studying, which sucks because it's like, okay, so like I'm studying, right? And I'm like, oh man, I'm so bored. I can't focus enough to actually learn anything. So then what I do to get like some stimulation is I like turn on music or something, and then I get distracted by the music, but it's like, and then I don't learn anything. So it's like, either way, I can either be understimulated and not learn anything, or stimulated and not learn anything. Those are my choices. So, yeah, so you start looking for sources of dopamine. So in my case, that would be music. Can lead to fidgeting and body-focused repetitive behaviors like skin picking and biting, compulsive snacking, daydreaming, etc., 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 etc. I don't know how I say that word. Like, technically it's etc., but like I feel like I say etc. That's weird. Etc. is whatever. We're moving on to overstimulation. So the fun thing is, you know, yes, we can get understimulated if we aren't getting enough sensory stuff, but guess what? We can also get too much sensory stuff. Isn't that exciting? It's like a little 2-for-1 package that we didn't ask for. So while we are more easily bored, we are also more sensitive to sensory input. So it is very difficult for our brains to filter out distractions, in case you haven't already figured that out. Oh my gosh, is my water bottle leaking again? Hopefully not. So basically, what am I trying to say? This is why I have notes. Oh, I wrote down an example. Look at that. Oh, not an example. I wrote, our brains are digging through a bajillion messages from our surroundings, and it's very overwhelming, and it leads to sensory overload because, it's like, okay, this doesn't happen to me personally because, like, I like my box to be, like, really clean, but, like, like, the people who have, like, 80 million emails in their inbox and they just don't clean it out? It's like that, but, like, in our brains. And we can't ignore it. That's what happens. That's what causes overstimulation. And basically everything feels like it's too much. You get you get much more irritable and anxious, and it can lead to meltdowns, shutdowns, and or angry outbursts. I have experienced all three, which is very fun. Which, this is actually a great segue for the next bit, which is executive dysfunction and emotions. So, okay, this might honestly have just been me being stupid, okay? This might have been me being dumb, but I thought executive dysfunction was just, like, being disorganized, like, not being able to complete tasks, like all, like, the outside, like, physical stuff, But then, when I was getting my diagnosis, she was like, oh, are you, like, easily irritable, blah, 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 and I was like, oh, yeah, and she's like, okay, so that's gonna be your executive dysfunction with, like, emotional dysregulation, and I was like, what? So it turns out executive dysfunction also causes emotional dysregulation, because people with ADHD experience emotions at a far higher intensity than your typicals. It basically, we have loads of trouble controlling these emotions, and then that leads to outbursts and impulsivity. So you learn something new every day. Which, continuing on the whole emotional thing, we're another thing that, okay, this isn't, like, only an ADHD thing. This is also, it's just common for people with ADHD, is rejection sensitive dysphoria, which basically is the act or idea of being rejected, teased, or criticized can lead to intense emotional pain. Just because the emotional dysregulation and the overstimulation, that wasn't enough. We also don't like rejection. So basically, because we struggle with emotional regulation, and if you have RSD, you get really strong negative emotions that can also cause meltdowns or shutdowns or outbursts, angry outbursts. I personally think I've gotten a little bit better with this because I was a speech kid, and you get a lot of constructive criticism and, like, rejection and stuff in speech, so I've gotten a little better at it. Okay. Next thing is also not, like, directly an ADHD thing. In fact, there's actually people who have this and then they get mistaken for having ADHD, and that's sluggish cognitive tempo. Which, when I was getting diagnosed, they also had me, like the questionnaire I was filling out had, like, a little section about this, and I was like, whoa, please don't tell me that me relating to all of this means that I won't get my diagnosis, because that didn't happen. But basically, symptoms include brain fog, sluggishness, inconsistent alertness, and slow processing speeds. So there's a lot of overlap with sluggish cognitive tempo and an attentive type ADHD, but they can also coexist. And I am living proof that they can coexist because I have both, and it's great. It's so fun. I love having brain fog all the time, 24/7, every single day, 365, 24/7, 365. Little shout out to some other little ADHD things. We got zero perception of time, hyper focusing, good quality of sleep being non-existent, glitching because you're thinking way faster than you can speak, brain radio, which is basically like having like music in your music in your brain playing 24/7. And dino hands, because apparently me holding my hands like this is not normal. I didn't know dino hands was like actually a thing. Like I was already calling it dino hands, and it turned out it was a thing, and I was like, oh. Anyways, so now you're probably thinking, maybe, I don't know, like, wow, some of this actually sounds really similar to this other thing called autism, which I said I would bring up in a bit. So we are just going to, okay, I guess very briefly. I don't know if this will actually be brief or not. We are going to, in a reasonable amount of time, discuss ADHD, the differences between ADHD and autism. I'm not going to talk about, is it ADHD? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I'm not going to talk about ADHD and autism like together, like what happens when you have them both, but we're going to talk about the differences between them. So, oh, these bullet points stood up. Okay, anyway. So first, we're going to go over the biological differences. This is the bit where I'm going to be honest, it's probably not the most accurate, because the sources I was looking at, all of them were like actual like science journals and stuff, and like there were a lot of big words and I didn't feel like reading them. So yes. So both ADHD and autism are neurodevelopmental conditions, which, as I said before, is basically your little brain dude being a silly little thing and not growing the way it's supposed to, according to like an average brain. There are no specific causes for either, but genetics most likely plays a large role for both. Again, that's why I said both. I don't know. Okay, I'm really tired. Like, it's just hitting me. I am tired. Anyways. So structurally, for autism, during early childhood, their brains actually grow larger in volume, like faster than the normal brain, which is kind of cool. But then around ages 10 to 15, it stops and then possibly decreases in volume. So they like go like, woo, like that. I did not have to make those sound effects. Okay, I'm going to stop with the hand thing. And they also have deficiencies in multiple other parts of their brain. Oh no, deficiencies in multiple other parts of the brain are common with autism. They gave a whole bunch of examples, but the only one I recognized was Wernicke's area. I don't know if I said that right. Wernicke? I don't know. Which is like a little tiny part in your brain that helps with speech comprehension. But again, these deficiencies are often common in other disorders, because that's the fun of the human brain. Usually if you have one thing, you also have like 5 other things. Whereas like we said, ADHD structurally is like mainly your prefrontal cortex. So rather than being here, it's just here. Well, I mean, there's other parts involved, but like mainly here. Anyway, with the neurotransmitters, okay, it said a whole bunch of stuff about like neurochemicals. I don't know if that's the word, but it said a whole bunch of stuff about like neurochemical-y stuff. But I decided to focus just on the transmitters because that's what I focused on for the ADHD. So autism has the dysfunction of various neurotransmitters, like multiple, so like serotonin, dopamine, and orexin. Those are the ones I wrote. I don't know what orexin is. I don't remember. I looked it up. I don't remember. Whereas ADHD is mainly only dopamine and norepinephrine. I saw this other thing that said also serotonin, but like I didn't really click on the link because it was a .com and it looked kind of sketchy, and I didn't really see anything else mention serotonin, so I don't really know about that. So that's something you're going to fact check yourself. Fact check yourself. Autism tends to be diagnosed earlier in life, while ADHD is diagnosed later, because you know, like that example I gave earlier about the child running through the grocery store screaming and how like any child could do that. That's kind of why ADHD is usually diagnosed later. For me, it was diagnosed way later, but that's okay. Obviously, there's like late diagnoses with both, especially with. Okay, this is actually one of the topics I could talk about, but especially with like. Okay, I'm using the term women very loosely here, but especially with like women with ADHD or autism, it's like most psychological stuff has been studied only on white men. So, you know, a lot of women are late diagnoses. Where am I? Both are spectrums. Okay, there's not just like one little thing, it's a whole spectrum. Both of them are spectrums. Lots of things are spectrums. That's just the fun of it. That's just the truth of it. And they share a lot of symptoms like hyperactivity, inability to read social cues, difficulty focusing or hyperfocusing, sensory things, executive dysfunctioning, etc. I say etc. Ew. I need to fix that. Or does everyone say that? I don't know. Anyway, but they may present differently or have separate causes. So that you're gonna have to look into more yourself because I stopped looking there. They are very comorbid. Now that's a word I can't say. It's comorbidity. Maybe I said it right. I keep saying comorbidity, but that's like Cinderella or something. Anyway, okay, this part I actually learned from TikTok, but the source I got it from was like an actual source. So TikTok was right. To the people who say social media can't be educational, just saying. Anyway, don't trust everything you see on the internet. Anyway, over half of autistic individuals have also been diagnosed with ADHD, and around a quarter of children diagnosed with ADHD show signs of autism. That's all the website said. I don't know if they like have autism or if it's just signs, but and both are often both are often comorbid with depression and or anxiety, which I can vouch for the anxiety one because I have also been diagnosed. Did I say this earlier? I don't think I did. I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and my anxiety is like directly connected to my ADHD, so that's fine. There's more. Oh my god. Okay. That was an ugly. Hyperfixations versus special interests. So special interests are more often associated with autism. These are more long-lasting extreme interests. I saw a Reddit post, that's what the Reddit source is for, that described having a special interest as having a really big crush on somebody. So like you wake up thinking about them, you go to bed thinking about them, you eat, sleep, breathe this special interest. And then hyperfixations are more associated with ADHD because these are like short-term extreme interests. Personally, I'm a little confused about the difference of them because like I feel like it should be obvious, but there are like situations where they aren't so obvious to me, which I will get to that later. Now this next bit. I just want to briefly address the whole, oh, everyone has a little bit of ADHD. For you know the people who say that, they're like, oh, everybody is a little bit ADHD. Everyone has a little ADHD. No, you are wrong. Because not everyone's brain lacks volume and neurotransmitters, first of all. Second of all, that's like the sciencey stuff. I don't know if it's spit or water. Second of all, it is a disorder, which means it negatively impacts your life. So, Duranthalid is your little ADHD negatively impacting your life? I didn't think so. Because, you know, Duranthalid, I don't know where I got that name from. You know, Duranthalid, are you constantly losing track of time to the point where you have to set alarms for almost everything and create super strict schedules for yourself, and even then you're still losing track of time? Yeah, I didn't think so, Duranthalid. Are you losing your keys every single day so much that's basically a routine? Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, take that, Duranthalid. Everyone, tell that to the Duranthalids in your life. How do you even spell Duranthalid? I don't even know where I got that from. I feel so bad if anyone names their child Duranthalid for some reason. That's such a stupid name. I was thinking the name Jonathan. Anyway, okay, this next bit, part 2. You know what? Let's take a little break. Get some entertainment going. Let's see. What's something we can do? Oh, I have a Discord notification. Oh no. Hang on. You guys get some keyboard ASMR. Okay, I should stop doing that. Okay. Let's do something entertaining. Let's take a brain break, as I like to put it. Let me see. What do I have? I don't have anything. I have Octodad and Minecraft, and that's it. What can we do a brain break with? Is that really all I have? Here, let me show you this napkin I have. This is our brain break. I have this napkin and it's a map of London. Have I been to London? No. But I have this. Look at that. It's London. Which way does this go? It's London on a napkin. Isn't that so exciting? There's a zoo somewhere up here. Look, it's the London Zoo. See, and now you know what, now not only do you know the science behind ADHD, you know what London looks like. And you don't now you don't even need to go. Because you know. What else? I got some baby pictures here, apparently. Look at that. And look at that. And look at that. And look at that. And look at that. Alright. I think that was a sufficient brain break. I have so much random stuff. What the heck? The Arch of Disney? I know I said we'd be done with the brain break, but I want to show you something. First of all, look at this book I got. It's really old. I found it in a bookstore, a secondhand bookstore. It was copyrighted in... Why does this open? It was copyrighted in... Oh! I haven't read this in a while. 1975. So it's very old. It's probably written well before that. But there's a picture in here that freaks me out so much I had to cover it up. So I'm going to show it to you. Let's see if I can find it. It's a potato. If I can find it. I'm actually kind of... I just know it really freaked me out. If I can find it. Brain break. Maybe I can't find it. What? Wow, look at all this old artwork. All this stuff that's honestly probably low-key racist. I'm gonna be real. I'm just saying. Okay, I can't find it, but it's a creepy potato where its eyes are actual eyeballs. So. You've been spared. Okay. Anyways, enough of the brain break. We're going to get into the fun part, which is me talking about how I got my diagnosis. Now, this is a bit of a journey, and it is a bit of an interesting one. It is a little over a year's long journey. So about 2 years ago, approximately, give or take, this is gonna sound so weird, okay? But listen, I was reading a fan fiction, okay? It's called Take This Compass, Follow It Home by Lightning_Nod. Highly recommend if you're into, like, Dream SMP and MCYT, kind of stuff. It's that kind of, it's a comfort fic. Anyway, comfort series. Anyway, so I was reading that, right? I can't even remember. I don't think it might have been my first time reading it. I don't remember, but I was reading it. And in it, in the fic, Tommy's, like, character Tommy, not actual Tommy. Anyway, Tommy in the fic has ADHD, and I was kind of like, you know, this sounds a little, you know? And then I started getting TikToks, and you know what happens with your For You page. They keep shoving those, like, ADHD, autism TikToks at you, and you're kind of, and I was just kind of like, these are a little too relatable. They're hitting a little too close to home. You know what I mean? So I was like, you know what? Let me go look at the DSM-5 criteria. Let me Google the DSM-5 criteria. We'll see. You know, it's probably nothing. You know, I probably don't. So I looked at the criteria and I was like, nah, that doesn't sound like me at all. I don't relate to this criteria, like, at all. I don't, like, what was it? There's, like, stuff where I was like, there's no way that's me, and now I look back and I'm like, no, that was definitely you. Difficulty organizing tasks. I was like, no, that's not me. However, what I failed to realize was, there are these things called coping mechanisms that you form to help you get through things. So, okay, but don't worry, we'll get to that later. So then I was like, there's no way I have ADHD. You know what I mean I have ADHD? There's no way I have ADHD. Like, not at all. I was like in complete denial, right? Also, I wasn't like actually really reflecting on it. So anyway, so then like a few months later, I had my first therapy appointment, and it was for anxiety. And my psychologist was like, boopity boop, you've got generalized anxiety disorder. And I was like, sweet, cool, good to know. Um, so then me and my psychologist, we started working on my driving anxiety because I get very anxious driving to new places and driving in general because I'm scared of getting into accidents and hurting people. And I told her this, and she was like, oh, well, like, why? Like, why are you scared of getting into accidents? Like, did something happen? And I was like, oh, well, you see, when I'm driving, I uncontrollably zone out, and I have nearly rear-ended people because of it. Not like, okay, I'm sure from my perspective it looked like nearly, but I did, like, I wasn't that close. Anyway, and she was like, oh, like, what do you mean zone out? Like, dissociate or like, go off in La La Land? That's how she put it, so that's how I put it out. And I was like, more like going off in La La Land. And she was like, listen, have you ever gotten tested for ADHD? And I was like, whoa, I've thought about it. Like, I thought about what if I have ADHD, but I don't think I do. And she's like, well, let me go over some symptoms for you. You let me know what you think. So she like went over this list of symptoms, and I was like, oh, no, none of those sound like me. What? No, not at all. Trouble paying attention? Absolutely not. I'm so good at paying attention. Um, and she was like, all right, like, let me know if you ever want to get tested. You know, up to you. If you don't think you have ADHD, then you know. But again, I have anxiety, so I started ruminating on that. I started being like, what if I do have ADHD? Like, you know, the fact that my psychologist, a person who has a degree in brain things, is asking me if I have ADHD, right? So I was like, let me go ask my friends. So I asked the two people who I was like consistently talking to at the time, because I don't have a lot of friends. But I was talking to my two friends who I was in touch with at the time, because this was like kind of when like the end of the lockdown was kind of wrapped. Well, no, the lockdown was already over, but I was still doing online school, so it's kind of like, anyways, I wasn't really like going out much. Not that I do now, but. And I was like to my friends, I was like, listen. So my psychologist thinks, oh, I have ADHD. Isn't that funny? Isn't that so funny? Me having ADHD. What do you think? And then my best friend goes, well, and then she proceeds to start listing symptoms that that I align with that she's noticed. And I'm like, oh. And then my other friend says, I think you do because you have the vibe. And I was like, okay, thanks. Thanks. Glad to know I have the vibe. And then so that obviously made me extra go like, you know, like maybe there's something here. So I started like actually researching ADHD and like actually reflecting. And that's when I was kind of like, oh crap, no, this does sound like me. This does sound like a lot like me. So I started taking ADHD quizzes, but then like when I took the quizzes, like all of them were like, you don't really have ADHD. So I was like getting very confused at this point. I was like, what? Like, so do I or do I not? But then again, whenever I take like those kind of tests, I never know how to like answer the questions because I feel like I always do them wrong because like I look into them too much. So honestly, that might be why. But also because, like, again, I had coping mechanisms. I didn't realize I had coping mechanisms. So after a while, I did some more research. And I was like, I got to the point where I was basically like, you know what? I'm, like, 92% sure I have ADHD. So I went back to my psychologist. And I was like, hey, I think I want to get tested. And she was like, smart choice. So I like tried to get an appointment, right? But then the clinic I normally go to, they're like freaking filled up like months in advance. So I like cannot get an appointment because they used to have like 3 like ADHD specialists or something, and then one of them retired or something, and then I was like, well crap, because now I couldn't get it. So I had to go find a whole nother clinic. So I've been like going through my insurance and blah 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 blah. It's very annoying. And then, like, at this point, right, like, I'm looking for a new clinic. It's late August, okay? I started this journey in, like, April. So it's, like, months later. And I've been, like, trying to get an appointment for the past, like, 3 or 4 months. And at this point, I've like, self-diagnosed. I'm like, I have ADHD. There's no way in heck I don't have ADHD. And my psychologist was also like, yeah, I won't be surprised if you do too. And I was like, there's no way, you know? So I finally get that initial appointment set up. And it took forever, but I finally found a place. And I got that initial appointment to like get a referral. Not for like the actual day, because you gotta get a referral first, which I guess makes sense, but honestly it's kind of stupid. Anyways, so I get my referral. Like, I get my referral, and I crush it. No. Okay, so I get my referral, and then I have 2 appointments with a psychologist. The first one's just like an initial, like, why do you think you have ADHD? And then she sends me home. Was it then she sent me home with the questionnaires? I don't remember. I don't remember what the first one was kind of like, why do you have ADHD? The second one was like some other thing. I don't even remember. And then like I got a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch. I got, no. Yeah, I got like 3 questionnaires I had to fill out. And one of them my family had to fill out. And then I like scheduled my 3rd appointment. And then randomly, a few days before my 3rd appointment, where I was like supposed to get my diagnosis, unless she was like, actually, we don't have enough information, we gotta do 4 appointments. Anyway, it is a whole thing. Like, she was like, this could take up to like, what, 6 appointments or something? And I was like, girl, I already know I have ADHD. Just tell me so I can get medication. Anyway, that's personally why. I should have said that at the get-go, or at the beginning. I wanted a diagnosis so I could get meds. Anyway, so a few days before the appointment, I get a phone call. And I was like, oh, uh-oh. Because I thought she was going to cancel and, like, reschedule. And I was like, oh my god, really? I've been doing this for, like, freaking months now. So I, like, pick up the phone or whatever, and I'm like, what? No, I'm kidding. That's really rude. I'm just like, hi, like, she's like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah. And we do, like, the whole polite, like, small talk thing, the adulting thing, you know, not adulting, but, like, being polite. Anyway, and then, she was like, oh, do you have time to hear a diagnosis right now? And I was like, haha, yes. And I got super nervous, because, okay, at this point, I was still a little bit like, what if I don't have ADHD? Like, what if this is just all, like, one really big weird coincidence that I happen to align with all these symptoms? Like, what if it's not ADHD? It's just me being a weirdo, you know? Which I'm a weirdo either way, but. And so then, on September 27th, 2022, I was diagnosed with ADHD, predominantly inattentive type, and re-diagnosed with GAD, but we already knew about that, so we don't care about that. And I was like, yes, finally, I could like do things. I don't know, I could get medication, I could get accommodations in school, and I was like, yes. So that's like that out of the way, okay? So here's where we get to like part 2 of this whole thing. So part 2 is a lot shorter because it started like a few months ago. So I saw psychologist. My psychologist, not the psychologist who was giving me the testing. My psychologist, I started working on like grounding techniques and mindfulness and like healthier coping mechanisms and like figuring out the brain stuff, you know? And then meanwhile, I was like to my primary care physician, I was like, yo, can I have a referral? And she was like, yeah, of course, bestie, I got you. Except she doesn't say bestie because she's an adult. Like a grown adult. And most grown adults do not say bestie. But anyway, so if you say bestie, you're young automatically. That's how this works. Anyway, she was like, yeah, I got you, bestie. So I get my referral and I get my first appointment. And at the first appointment, my psychiatrist prescribes me 10 milligrams of Vyvanse. Now here is where everything goes wrong. Not wrong, it doesn't go wrong, but here's where everything got a little funky, a little strange. So I get my meds and I'm like, cool. And like, you know, being me, I don't really check the label because I'm like, I don't know, man, there's some weird big chemically sciencey word, whatever. I don't really look at it, you know? Because again, ADHD, no attention to detail. And then I get this letter from my insurance, my old insurance. I have new insurance now. Anyway, I broke up with my old insurance, but I get this letter from my insurance being like, hey, we don't cover Vyvanse, actually, so good luck. And I was like, oh, great. So I messaged my psychiatrist and I'm like, yo, this is what my insurance said. My ex-insurance said. And he was like, oh, well, I will put it a prescription for you for Adderall XR. I was like, okay, that's the funny medicine, Adderall. So, so then, and then my dad's like, you know, you gotta call the clinic and tell them you want it to be generic, the generic brand, because that's the kind the insurance covers. And I was like, oh my god. So I call the pharmacy, and literally, okay, this is the weird part, okay? It turns out the pharmacy already gave me Adderall XR because I guess they like saw my thing didn't cover Vyvanse. So they just gave me Adderall without telling me they gave me Adderall. And I was like, what? Like, you can't just give me drugs without telling me what the drugs are. That's weird. And without telling my psychiatrist either. Anyway, so then I messaged my psychiatrist and I'm like, they told me that they already gave me Adderall. And he was like, well, what's on the label? And I was like, amphetamine salts. Okay, good. You didn't see that. My address is on that. And I was like, amphetamine salts. And he was like, yeah, that's Adderall. Also, it says really small. It literally says really small on the bottom of it. Common brands, Adderall XR. So again, no attention to detail. Anyway, so I'm like literally freaking out because, not freaking out, but I'm like weirded out because, first of all, if I never got Vyvanse, why is my insurance mailing me about Vyvanse? Second, they like sent me a mail, like a straight up letter. Like it's 2020 at this time. It was 2022. Like, use email. Anyway. So my ex-insurance company was mailing me, like, some weird 1800s something, and the CVS freaking didn't tell me they switched the drugs out, which is also, like, really sketch. But, you know, I have a new insurance now. I'm a lot happier with my new insurance, you know. We're in a much better relationship. This insurance actually covers Vyvanse as well, but I'm not on Vyvanse right now. Yeah, so basically the whole thing was my mom's not watching, but if she sees this, excuse my language, but the whole thing was a shit show. It was an absolute shit show. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I was like, what is happening? Anyway, the 10 milligrams does absolutely nothing other than give me dry mouth and 2 nights of insomnia. So he bumped me up to 15, which again did absolutely nothing but give me dry mouth, but only 1 night of insomnia this time. And now tomorrow I'm supposed to start on 20 milligrams. And if that doesn't work, he's switching me to Ritalin. So I'll keep y'all updated on how that goes, I guess. So, yeah, that's where we're at now. That's the whole... That is what has happened with me and getting diagnosed with ADHD up until now. It's quite the ride. I will say though, my CVS is like kind of sketchy because when I did switch my insurance, I forgot to show them my insurance information when I went to go pick up my meds. And then so like I went back the next day to switch it and they're like, oh, we already have your new insurance. And I was like, what? How? They're really freaky. They can like see into the future or something. Anyways. Now that I have my diagnosis, I was like, wow, a lot of things make a lot more sense now. Like, why I used to be so talkative. Literally at every parent-teacher conference at elementary, the teachers would always say the same thing. Oh, she's so, like, they'd be like, oh, she's really smart and we love having her in class, but she can be a little disruptive with how much she talks. And then that kind of stopped in middle school because that's when my anxiety really kicked in. I used to literally fall out of my chair at dinner because I would never sit properly. I still don't sit properly. I'm not sitting properly right now. Not really. You don't have proof because you can't see me from below, but like, I'm not sitting in my chair the way I'm supposed to. According to social construct. Anyway. But I would literally fall out of my chair and like hit my head on the floor because I wouldn't sit properly. Okay, I do sit properly in public, but only in public. And even then, sometimes I don't. Anyway, why I've been playing with my hair since I was a baby. You've probably, like, seen the entire time throughout the stream. I've just been, like, playing with my hair. That's just something I've always done, literally since I was an infant. Anyway. Why I have to sleep with my hands shoved into the waistband of my pants, because apparently that is actually a thing also. It's something to do with pressure or something. I don't know. Why I have outbursts that end with me throwing a borderline tantrum or bawling my eyes out despite being adult. These are what meltdowns are. Nothing to be ashamed of. It is what it is, you know? And I literally nearly had a meltdown doing my taxes last week, so hashtag relatable, bro. Yeah, that the list goes on. That's what my last bullet point says. It says, and the list goes on, except it doesn't actually, because it stops there. So it's kind of a lie. Anyways, so this next section is called My Experience with ADHD. But we could skip. No, we're not gonna skip that. I'm kidding. This is the bit I'm excited about. Ooh. Oh wow. Oh wow, I wrote a lot for this bit. Okay, we're halfway through all my packet apparently. Well, more than halfway, because the last page is like mostly sources. Yeah. Okay, daily life. So this is what's like. I wake up and I feel like I'm living in a haze, because again, brain fog, just 24/7, constantly. It just, there's, I don't know. Whenever I'm describing brain fog, I go like this, because it feels like there's like a haze in front of my brain, and it like messes with my eyes or whatever. I don't know. I sound like a crazy person. Anyway, constantly forgetting things, easily distracted, or so hyper-focused I ignore my body's cues, for example. Oh, okay, so one time, I was doing homework with like a friend, and I was like, no, I'm gonna finish this assignment before I go to the bathroom because I needed to pee. And then I said out loud, you know what? Self-care. I'm gonna go to the bathroom right now. So, go to the bathroom, please. Don't hold your pee. Attempting to focus and learn in school, try not to get too overwhelmed from school, but struggling due to a lack of coping mechanisms. So that's basically my daily life. Which kind of leads into the next bit, which is auditory sensory stuff. That's what I titled this. So basically, out of all my senses, to me personally, my hearing has always been the most important. I don't know. I do know why. It's because music is very important to me, being able to listen to it. However, as I've gotten older, I'm aging. As I've aged, that makes me sound really old. Yeah, I'm actually secretly 83. I'm 83 years old. But I look so young. I still get acne at 83. It's how you stay young and with the kids and hip. Anyways, so as I've gotten older, I've gotten increasingly sensitive to sound, which is so fun. Ooh. Girl. No, we're good. Okay. Sorry. Which sucks, because like I said, I love music. Music is very important to me. The music I listen to has always been a coping mechanism and a way for me to like express myself, so it's like very important to me, but now it's like all of a sudden it's not so fun anymore sometimes, And so I first noticed this because I would be listening to music, and all of a sudden, none of the music would sound good. Like, this was before I got my diagnosis. None of the music would sound good, and the songs weren't making me, like, excited like they usually do, but they were making me irritated. Music was making me irritated. Like, I didn't want to listen to anything. And I was like, what? And then, when I went to see the touring cast of Hadestown, I found the singing and instruments, well, extremely beautiful, because I freaking love Hadestown. It was overwhelmingly loud, and I was like, I love this, but I also hate this. I was waiting so long for this, and I love it so much, but I hate it because they're so loud. Is that going to stop me from seeing musicals? No. I'm just going to suffer and enjoy at the same time, I guess. There's probably a word for that. I don't know. And then the latest time this happened was after I got my diagnosis. I went to the mall with my friends, and I brought noise-canceling headphones just in case, and they kind of helped, but then I was dumb, and I took them off and put them away because I thought we were leaving, and then my friend was like, oh wait, no, remember I put something on hold at Old Navy, so we had to go pick it up, and that took like another half hour. Probably not half hour, it's probably more like 15 minutes, but it felt like half an hour. And by the end of it, I'd shut down because I was overstimulated and my ears hurt really bad, and now I'm scared to go back to malls because every time I think of a mall, my ears start hurting. Literally traumatized, not traumatized. Okay. And I'm pretty sure it is getting worse because my ears hurt more often now, and my noise canceling headphones don't really work. Also, they kind of pinch my head after a while, so that makes it worse. But that's okay, because I'm thinking about getting like earplugs or something, because that should help. Okay, and then because again I have anxiety, so that makes me like ruminate over things. So I ruminate over being overstimulated. That's what I wrote. And because your brain can't tell the difference between what's imaginary and what's real, thinking about even being overstimulated makes me feel overstimulated in some weird placebo way. So that's fun. And one time, I literally overstimulated myself by thinking about being overstimulated to the point where I had to take a nap before class, which kind of helped. Not really, but it helped a little bit. But yeah, now I'm trying to like learn how to manage that, so it's all good. Um, Coping mechanisms. My eyes are really dry right now. That's because I'm tired. That's the other thing. My eyes get really dry. Also, probably because I stare at screens all day, which is not good, but you know. That reminds me, when I was younger, my parents used to tell me reading in the dark is what ruins your eyes. But in reality, I mean, I'm sure that was part of it. But in reality, like 90% of your eyesight getting worse is like genetics. I pulled that percentage out of my butt. Don't quote that. Anyway, so coping mechanisms I have. Alarms and Google Calendar are literally my best friends. I have a schedule now for which days I do homework for what classes, so I don't get overwhelmed by seeing my list of assignments. I leave my phone in like very specific places. So like if I'm in my room, I will leave it on my desk, or this is kind of weird, but or I'll leave it in my closet, like on top of my clothes. Or like if I'm downstairs, I'll leave it purposely in front of my chair on the table. So that like if I go somewhere and I lose it, I have like those. There's more than 3 places, but I'll have those like 3 places to check. You know. Putting the laundry basket directly in front of the stairs. That way, if I'm doing laundry, I can't forget to do laundry because I literally run into the laundry basket because I can't get down the stairs if it's blocking. I want a weighted blanket because I think it will help, but they're either too expensive or I look too much into the reviews. But I think I'm just gonna go for it and get one. You know, one of the cheaper ones. Hope it works and hope it's not too cheap. I also have a bunch of fidgets, but I haven't really found one that works yet, so I kind of just have a bunch of fidgets for no reason. I literally have a whole box of monkey noodles and nothing to do with them because they don't work. So I feel kind of bad because my friend got them for me for a Christmas present. Anyway. And then this other coping mechanism, which is a not so good one, is the fact that I have learned to prioritize memorizing things over learning. Now, this is an issue that honestly, it kind of just falls down onto the US school system. This isn't just a me thing, but having ADHD, especially inattentive type, makes it worse because people with inattentive type ADHD tend to process information a lot slower. And then, like, already we have trouble focusing. So I have, like, a really hard time learning things already. And now we're in a school system where freaking they're just trying to churn out workers, so grades are like above all else instead of like learning and making mistakes and whatever. So basically, I learned to memorize things as fast as I could, throw that information on the test, chuck that information out my brain so I can start memorizing more things. And it's a vicious cycle that I'm sure a lot of people go through, not just people with ADHD. Which brings me to accommodations, which I didn't get until this year because I didn't have my diagnosis until this year. So basically, before this, with my whole memorizing, chucking thing, in class, I would focus purely on taking notes, like only on taking as detailed notes as possible, because when teachers say only take notes of the important stuff, I don't know what they mean. I don't know what's important. Okay, I'm gonna take notes with everything because I don't know what you're gonna put on the test. I can't predict that. I'm not a mind reader. Anyway, so I would take as detailed notes as I could so that I could read over and process it later, and like, you know, and then the teacher would be like talking, blah 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 blah, whatever. Sometimes they'll like talk about stuff that isn't even on the slides, but I'm so busy like taking notes on the slides, I miss whatever the teacher says, and they're going blah blah blah, blah whatever, and I'm like, girl. Anyway, okay, slow down. I'm talking really fast. Sorry, but now I have 3 accommodations. I have getting PowerPoints, like the slides, at the beginning of the week so I could take notes before class and listen to the teacher in class. I have being able to record lessons and semi-private testing space. But I don't use the last two because my teachers usually record their lectures anyway, especially after the whole Panini lockdown. So, um, and I'm actually a pretty solid test taker, so I don't really need the quiet testing space. Also, it's on the other side of the school, and I'm not going all the way over there to take a test. Okay, I'm just gonna stay in my classroom. I'm all good. I'm not going all the way over there. With the PowerPoint one, right now my current classes, all of my teachers put the PowerPoints ahead of time, so I don't need to use my accommodations this semester. But for last semester, I had two professors who didn't put the slides up ahead of time. And one of them would email them to me before class, so I got like special privileges of having personally delivered slides basically. And the other teacher just ignored that part of my accommodations. And that was actually the class I was hoping to get that accommodation for. Now, I didn't say anything. I definitely should have advocated for myself, but I didn't say anything. So, advocate for yourselves. I still got an A in that class, though. So, okay. Now we're gonna circle back a bit to the hyperfixation special interest topic. So this is why I'm a little confused. Okay, so like I've had like obvious hyperfixations, right, where I dig up loads of information and whatever, but like they only last like a month or two maximum. So this happened more when I was younger. So more like when I was younger, I was obsessed with dog breeds, and I'd have like a hyperfixation of a different dog breed like every week. Yeah, and sometimes I would like yeah. I basically read every single dog book in my elementary school library. So, and then I've had special interests, so like longer ones that I've obsessed over until I literally got sick of them or they faded on their own. So like fading, for example, the Dream SMP was a huge one for me. Except like as the Dream SMP kind of faded, I also kind of faded with it. So like they're here and I'm also here. Like I'm matching their energy level, you know? And then one special interest I had that I was obsessed with until I got sick of it was Hamilton. Literally, okay. I'm starting to like re-tolerate it again a little bit, but like I like, you know, Hamilton has like its issues, which then makes my brain go, no, anyway. So literally for like 3 years straight, all I listened to was Hamilton. It was so bad. I got so sick of it, man. But I wasn't one of those Hamilton fans. Like, you know, those ones. I don't know. That makes me sound really judgmental. You know what? If you love Hamilton like that, pop off. As long I wasn't one of the like really annoying ones, you know? Actually, I probably was annoying about it. I guess I was one of those Hamilton. Never mind. Okay, now I feel mean. I didn't mean that in a... Let's just move on. I'm gonna get canceled or something, bro. Okay, and then here's where it gets a little more confusing, right? So I've had interests that would turn into that would have turned into special interests if something else hadn't come up. So Hadestown and Heathers are two examples of this. I've had interests. I still love both of them, by the way, but they're just not special interests. But Hadestown was like so nearly one. And then something happened. I'm not going to explain what, but something happened and I was like, ooh. Anyway. And then I have interests where I'll be obsessed with them for like a really long time, but I don't really dig up information about them. Ride the Cyclone being an example of this. Like, okay, I literally wrote it out here. Literally stopped researching here to see if there's any updates with the hashtag save Ricky Potts, then saw a Reddit post with a link to the subtitles for the 2016 version, then downloaded and transferred the file to a text file so I could copy and paste it into a script for me to read for funsies later. Okay, but like, you know how like the Reddit post said like having a long form interest. That's not a thing. Having a special interest is like having a crush. That's like Ride the Cyclone with me. I eat, breathe, sleep, that stuff. I wake up, think about Ride the Cyclone. I go to bed, think about Ride the Cyclone. Literally. Anyways. But like I haven't really like dug for information for it. You know what I mean? Anyways. They keep saying anyways. Anyway. And then I have what I call my like on and off interest, which is like, for example, like 6, where like I'll get hyperfixated on it for like a few months and that goes away. And it comes back, and then it goes away. And it goes back, and then it goes away. It just keeps doing that. But for the most part, a lot of my hyperfixations faded to normal interests where, like, I'm still interested in them, but I'm not, like, obsessing over them as much. You know? Okay. We're almost done. I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm gonna be honest. Ooh, girl. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. That was really weird. Okay. Moving swiftly onwards. Ugh. I got plugged in my laptop. Sorry. Okay. Okay, this one's very brief. I just want to talk about love languages. Because, okay, so I saw this TikTok about neurodivergent love languages. Don't remember the TikToker's name, but I just remember they're autistic and they really like bugs, and they have a TikTok of them crying because they got a super cool beetle. So if that rings a bell, I don't remember what they're called, what their account's called, but they had a whole TikTok about like 5 neurodivergent love languages, and I really relate to two of them. So I just want to share them. So first of all, info dumping. Obviously, this is what I'm doing right now. But if I info dump to you, that means I'm very comfortable around you and don't feel the need to mask. So, you know, take that as a compliment if you're watching this. Yeah. And then the next one is penguin pebbling. This one's really cute. So you know how like penguins will give each other rocks to like propose to each other basically? So what I do, so penguin pebbling is where you like pick up little things and you like give them to people. So for me, what I do is I like to make tiny bouquets and like flower chains out of dandelions and like those little white flowers. I don't know what they're called, but they're also like weeds. Anyway, and I used to bring these dandelion bouquets to my mom and she would throw them away. And it would be heartbreaking finding them in the trash later. But to be fair, she has like a severe pollen allergy and dandelions have so much pollen on them, so. Yeah, okay. And finally, we're gonna talk about stimming because we love stimming. Stimming is great. So my stims include hand flapping, so that, you know, toe tapping, which sounds like I tap my toes like this. like you know how you have your like 5 toes? I go like this. That's how I tap my toes. I don't know how to explain it. I started doing it in bands to keep track of beats, like beats per measure, because I didn't want to like tap my toes like this because I was like, it's so obvious you're like tapping your toes to hold the beat and it's like making a sound on the ground, and I was like, I want to find like a more quiet way to keep count. So I started tapping my toes like this. And I was just a stim. Anyway, and then like light slapping, so like usually I'll go like this or something. Or if I have a surface. Rocking is something I do. That's more when I'm like, actually no, I do rocking like a lot. So like back and forth or side to side, chewing on lips and fingers. I can show you. Maybe this hand's better. Oh, you can't really see, I guess. But like I chew on like the skin around my fingers. You probably can't see. Okay, sorry. I don't know why I did that. Impulsive thoughts. Anyway, and then playing with hair, obviously. Something else I do is tensing and relaxing my body multiple times in succession. I don't know why I do that. I just do. Talking to myself, singing, and talking in a bad accent, usually British. I've done that on stream before. I did it on stream today. I apologize to any British people who see this. My accent's not good. Anyway, listening to the same song, album, or musical over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is apparently a form of stimming as well. Repetitive noises, phrases, or humming / whistling, except I'm not very good at whistling. Oh, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah. So, okay. With the repetitive noises and phrases, sometimes it'll be like a phrase I come up with, and then I get like stuck on it. Like I can't stop saying it. Like I can, but like I get like the impulse to say it, you know, and then it's like, well, I'm gonna say it if I feel like saying it, because why wouldn't I? So like, okay, this is such a dumb example, but one time I was having one of those like little microwavable chicken pot pies, and I kept saying, like, it's a little bitty pie, like that, with I kept saying, it's a little bitty pie, and I kept saying it over and over, and I couldn't stop, because it was funny to me. Anyway, and then, okay, this next one, I'm a little about if this is, like, exactly what I do, but whoa, wow, okay. Non-interactive echolalia. So echolalia is basically where you like repeat things you hear, sometimes immediately, sometimes not. It's more common in people who are autistic, except they usually do it. I don't remember what the other kind's called, but it's to communicate. Usually when they do it, it's like to try to communicate. And then there's non-interactive, which is basically more for like stimming. So I do it more for stimming. I only do it for stimming. So parroting phrases other people say. So like if I hear something on TV or I hear someone say something, I will just like repeat what they said. I do this with my mom a lot. I don't know why. Like my mom will say something and I'll just like mimic her. Reciting portions of a show. Annabelle, my sister, she can vouch for me on this. I will randomly break out into reciting portions from Ride the Cyclone, the 2016 one, because that's the one with the bootleg. I mean, the really legal release of the Pro Shot. Legal. Anyway, but I will literally just break out into reciting portions of Ride the Cyclone. I could do it right now if I wanted to. I'm not going to, but I could. Repeatedly singing slash humming one part of a song. So like, even if I know the whole song, I'll just like keep singing one part or humming. Like yesterday, last night, I kept humming the same chunk of the credit song from Amazing World of Gumball. That was really bad. Anyway, but you know what I mean. If you've seen that show. And then situation association. That's a fun one. Which is basically you see or hear something and your brain goes, whoa, that reminds me of this other thing. And then you say it out loud. So when I was in astronomy, for example, which, by the way, not an astronomy fan personally, but it's cool stuff, but it's just not for me. Anyway, but the words uranium and plutonium would come up a lot. And those two words also happen to come up in the song Uranium Sweet from Ride the Cyclone. So every time I'd see it, I would just automatically start singing. Not out loud if I was at school, but like at home if I was studying it, I'd start singing. But yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have. I totally have not been talking for the past hour and a half straight, and I am literally losing my voice. I can feel it leaving me. It's leaving me. It's like that makes it seem like my soul is leaving. No. Okay. Anyway. I feel like I was gonna say something else. Oh yeah, okay. I feel like I should address this because I feel like other people might ask me about this. Hi, I hope you're doing great. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I'm very sorry about that. Secondly, I'm just talking about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's basically where your brain is built different and it makes it hard to pay attention and it makes you impulsive, kind of like that. Also, I am so sorry. I don't think I talk really fast and very messily, which is also the ADHD. So sorry, I'm probably really hard to understand since you're still learning English, but yeah. Anyways, one thing I want to address real quick, because I feel like this might come up. I don't think I have autism. Like, I know I was talking earlier about autism and ADHD. I don't think I have autism. I took a bunch of quizzes. They all said yes. But I'm gonna be real, I don't, now that I know how to reflect, I don't think I do, personally. Do all the quizzes say I do? Sure, but I don't think I do. I think it's just my anxiety and my ADHD. So, anyways, yes. We're going to end stream now. Ew. Where can you find this quiz? I took like a million of them. So, usually what you can do is you can look up like insert whatever you're trying to find and then quiz. So, like if you want to do more specifically ADHD, you can look up ADHD quiz and there'll be a whole bunch. Or autism quiz, there will be a whole bunch. Honestly, not all of them are probably the most accurate. So definitely do like other research. And if you can talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist or any other healthcare professional who knows things about brains, I recommend doing that as well if you can. I don't know. It is what it is. If you think you have it, self-diagnose, no big deal. I personally was looking for a diagnosis for ADHD because I wanted medication, so you don't really need a diagnosis, If you think you have it and you relate to all the symptoms, you probably have it. That's usually how it rolls. Okay. Yes, we are going to end now. So, yeah, are you stopping the stream? In a little bit. I'll be back next Saturday, though. I stream every Saturday at 2 p.m. CST. We're just gonna wrap up here. I have been talking for an hour and a half straight, so... Because normally when I stream, I do gaming. I play games, and you don't really need to talk the entire time you're gaming. So I'm, losing my voice. But, yeah. What time is it where you live? It is 3:23 p.m. I live in Central Standard Time Zone. So, yeah, every Saturday. Don't forget to drink. Yeah, I have water right here. I actually forgot for a bit, so thank you. But, yeah, I'll be live again next Saturday. Do not worry. At 2 p.m. CST. Honestly, okay, I was supposed to play Minecraft today, and I didn't. You have a good evening as well. But yeah, so next weekend will be the chill Minecraft stream. It's gonna be super chill, and you'll see why when I get to it. Mainly because I have nothing to do in Minecraft, but anyway. But yeah. We are going to go ahead and end. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to join my Discord, because sometimes I forget to advertise it. If you would like to join my Discord, you can either put in chat the little exclamation point Discord and Nightbot will get you a link to my server, or you can go to the About section of my Twitch and there's a panel you can click on that will also lead you to my Discord server. I almost said service. Server. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can go to the description of the video. I don't know why you'd watch this on YouTube, because my VODs channel is more for archival purposes. But anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to the description of the video. There will be a link there. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for watching. If you watch the VOD or if you were here live, and I will see you guys next week. Yeah, okay. Bye!
Charge for your health care before helping you. They'll let you jump